ever walked into a room and felt the air change? Like the temperature has changed by 10 degrees. We've all had that sensation of our hairs on our arms standing on end before or even once entering a room. But we put this down to drafts and imagination. But it does leave us wondering what that feeling actually is. Today on the podcast, we will be taking a deep dive into the paranormal. We will be sharing a personal story from a lady named Sarah. We will also be looking into why humans are biologically wired to believe in ghosts. I will also be answering some of your burning questions that you have sent in over our social medias. Sarah has called her story the Essex Encounter. She starts off by saying, "A few years back, I was staying near the coast in Essex. It was an old Victorian style house. Creaky floorboards, high ceilings, the whole cliche. It was 2:15 a.m. I was wide awake because the house was making these rhythmic thumping sounds. Not the sounds of wood settling. It sounded like footsteps moving from the hallway into the bedroom. She says she didn't see a figure, but what she saw was a heavy velvet curtain at the window pull back. She said it pulled back slowly, as if someone was looking out onto the street. There was no wind. The windows were also locked. She mentions the feeling of absolute paralysis. That's what we're going to talk about today. The fear response. Why does our brains freeze? Was it a spirit, or was it a waking dream? I can only imagine how Sarah was feeling in that room at 2:15 in the morning. When I've had my own personal experiences, the feeling you get is very uncomfortable. Although I am very accustomed to the paranormal doesn't frighten me. I've experienced some very strange things in the dead of night. But I would like to thank Sarah for sharing her short story with us about that old Victorian style house that she stayed in Essex. Why do we see ghosts? Scientists talk about something called infrasound. Infrasound is sound waves below the human hearing range, around 19 hertz. Infrasound is said to cause hyperventilation. It can also give you that sense of dread. But check this out. It can actually cause your eyeballs to vibrate, which then would sort of explain the corner of the eye phenomena. So scientists believe that wind rushing through corridors of haunted buildings can create infrasound. So is every ghost just a frequency? But Infrasound doesn't move curtains or quietly whisper your name. So this is where the stone tape theory comes in. The idea that minerals within the walls of a building, like quartz and limestone, can record highly emotional events and play them back like a DVD. With Sarah's experience, she mentions that she was wide awake due to the thumping noises she could hear. If she was tired, you could understand that infrasound or pareidolia could be a cause of her experience. But from my own experience of experienced stuff at then times in the morning when you're not sleepy, it only heightens your state of awareness, leading to you feeling more awake due to the alert in your brain trying to work out where this noise is coming from or what you've just seen or heard. So infrasound in this case, I don't think is possible. I think Sarah was actually having a paranormal experience of somebody who may have resided at this old Victorian style house once upon a time. But the stone tape theory may make sense with this experience, as that sits on the fence with residual hauntings, which is also a playback of an emotional past event. When I speak with people, either on social media or in person, they always ask me my thoughts on the Ouija boards. Well, my response to Ouija boards is, me personally, I think they can be a dangerous tool, especially if you don't know how to open them and close them down. That's not to say that people shouldn't use them, but my personal preference is to leave them well alone. Would you believe that the Ouija board was actually brought out as a toy? It was a board game that children could get hold of and use at their leisure. The workings of the Ouija board. There is a scientific view, I think it's called ideomotor effect, where unconsciously your muscles move on their own, creating the planchette to move. But on the other hand, evil spirits have been known to come through Ouija boards and take people over while doing so. This is another reason why I never get involved with the Ouija boards, because I've never heard a good story come from one. It's either somebody acting as a loved one, mimicking somebody else's presence, ready to lunge and attach themselves to a physical human being. Another question I'm always asked is, what is the scariest experience you've ever had? Mine goes back to when I was a teenager. I picked up an attachment from a place called Bewley Motor Museum. In my teens, I had an obsession with the paranormal. I was open to the paranormal. I could sense, feel, and see the paranormal. On this particular day, we was on holiday and visited the Bewley Motor Museum house. So the Bewley house, it was a great day. We did actually get some strange paranormal stuff happening around the house, but cut a very long story short, I brought away an attachment from the monastery there. I had nightmares and dreams physically seeing a 6'4", 6'5", dark cloaked entity in my dreams, nightmares, and actually while I was working. This was a really scary time for me because back then I had nobody to speak to about the paranormal. I had no idea how or why this entity was with me. But what I do know is I learned a hell of a lot through that year. We ended up taking this monk entity back to Bewley the next year. We booked another holiday to the same resort we stayed in, and I was told through meditation that I should take this monk back, which is what I did. And to everybody's amazement, when we arrived back at Bewley House, I was being shown a huge cross that I never see on the first time. We didn't see this cross, but we just managed to walk round the corner near the house, and there was a huge white cross staring us in the face. I knew instantly that I had to go to that cross. I had no idea what was going to happen to me. I went to the cross and I kneeled at this cross, and my family members told me afterwards that I was speaking a foreign language, which now I know was Latin. I can't speak Latin. I can't speak any other language other than English. We had an audience by this time. There was people watching me do this, which was very uncomfortable, but it needed to be done. So I recited what I needed to recite, and the emotion that come over me when this entity left my side was something else. As a teenager, I very rarely cry, ever. Something has to be really bad for me to let go of my emotions. And on this particular occasion, my emotions just flooded out. It was a whole weight that had been lifted from my body. I could physically feel it removing itself from my aura. So that's one of my scariest times. Don't get me wrong. On my ghost events, I've had some very, very strange stuff happen to me, or witnessed some very strange stuff. But I've become accustomed to it, and I am no longer frightened of anything paranormal. I will quite happily put myself in a dark room and sit there for as long as it takes to experience something. It does not faze me. But that is my story that I share with people because it's the most vivid one and the one that sticks in my mind until today. It's so vivid. I get asked, have I ever seen a ghost? The answer is yes. I believe I have seen ghosts. When I was a kid, right up to this very day. It can happen at the most randomest times. And to be quite honest with you, I can't decipher sometimes whether I'm talking with a ghost or whether I'm talking to a human being. They are that similar. The ghosts that I've seen are as physical as you and me. And if you've ever seen a ghost, let me know in the comments how you see that ghost. Because they're definitely not them white sheeted figures that people think, or see through. I believe that the see-through-ish ones are part of the manifestation to a full-bodied apparition. The ones that I've seen look just as physical as you and me. As we wrap up today's episode, I want to leave you with one thought. Whether you believe in spirits, demons, or just weird science, the paranormal represents the great unknown, a mystery that hasn't been solved. Maybe the reason we hunt ghosts is not to be scared, but to see if there is anything else after this, and that the story doesn't just end when the lights go out. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are listening on Spotify, I would kindly ask you to leave me a review, as this helps the channel grow. If you have your own paranormal story or had an experience that you can't explain, shoot me over an email and I'll read your story on the next show. Stay spooky, guys. I'll see you on the next one.